we got the bill and it was like $10,000.
He was like, oh, we have to test the semen. And I was like, I did.
Sailors.
Hello everybody, it is Dingle here and welcome back to my channel. I hope y'all are doing super duper well, and today we are joined by my husband Jack. Yes, we all know and love him very much. Are you excited to be here today?
I am. I haven't had coffee yet today.
You haven't had any coffee yet?
I know, I'm waiting for afternoon coffee.
Oh my gosh, guys, he hasn't had his morning coffee. So first of all, you guys, I know I've said this probably in a previous video, but thank you guys so much for the support on the video that was released, on the subsequent videos after that. It really did touch us like tremendously, so.
Totally. It really does mean a lot.
Of course, posting the video last week and then also posting on Instagram last week, I got a lot of really great questions and encouragement and support in my DMs, so I thought it would be really great for the first video past everything to be a Q&A where you guys get to ask all of the questions, everything that you're wondering about our experience, Jack's experience specifically, fertility and infertility in general. Because with us sharing this, any more light that we can shed on this about people wondering, because we had no idea half the stuff that we know now before going into it whatsoever. It would be great if we can share that and continue to shed more light on it. So with that said, I asked you guys on my Instagram to send me any and all questions, and I rounded up a few that were asked frequently and then ones that were just interesting in general. At first,
the gates open.
All right, in no particular order, let's get started. What's the biggest struggle during this journey for you and Jack? Just not being pregnant. I think that would be my answer.
Yeah.
Like, I think at the end of the day,
when it comes down to it, yeah.
Yeah, like the end goal of this entire thing is for a baby, Mac and Jack. And so every month that passes where we don't have that, like it's another month that passes without us accomplishing, which sounds weird, but you know what I'm saying, like accomplishing that end goal that we've been like hoping for so much.
Totally, especially because it seems like it should be so easy to do.
I know.
And like, you're always told growing up, it's like, don't get anyone pregnant, or you don't want to get pregnant,
don't have
wear
sex
protection.
Because you'll get pregnant and
the
die.
second you do, yeah, you'll get pregnant and die. It's like, well, we've been trying on purpose, and got news for you. Doesn't work like that.
For us and other couples.
Yeah.
It can definitely work like that. So still be safe out there, kids.
But it's disappointing.
It is. I think it's disappointing.
That's the biggest struggle, I think.
We're kind of at a point in our journey where I'm not super discouraged about all of the treatments or anything like that yet. And if there is pain associated or side effects associated with medications, it's still just like all worth it to me in my mind. So I wouldn't say that those are the struggle. It's more so just not being pregnant right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't know when it's gonna happen.
No, we have no control over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
We're just waiting.
It's waiting. We're just waiting. This is interesting, and I'm actually curious about your perspective too.
Okay.
Did you have any idea this was going to be your journey? If so, what made you think so? And I remember telling you at one point, like when we were dating, it was kind of during the early stages, I had this gut feeling that we were gonna have trouble one day. And I have no basis for that because on my side of the family, I think there's one family member, but not in like my immediate family, that did have fertility struggles when it came down to it, but nothing on Jack's family, and he's one of 8 kids. All logic about it didn't make sense why I thought that way, but I just felt like one day it would be hard for us.
That's interesting.
I have no basis for it.
I have nothing to add because I don't think I ever
You never thought that it would be tough.
No. Yeah, and that's why, going back to number 1, I think it's also such a struggle not being, like, again, like, you're just told, like, if you do this, you're gonna get pregnant.
You're going to get someone pregnant, or you're going to get pregnant.
And so I'm doing that and more.
And it's not
Someone
working.
is not getting pregnant. So yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think it was just intuition, and I'm a huge believer in like gut feelings and intuition. Some definitely don't come true. Something told me that we would have trouble. I just didn't know what the journey looked like for us pertaining to that. Was there ever a time you just wanted to give up?
No, there's been a time when we just wanted to give up. But there's like a way to like eloquently say it, so I'll just say it as blunt as I can.
Yeah, you can just go for it.
There are times that you have to have sex repeatedly, and like you need to do it, and like this is a very new concept for me. You gotta like do it at these times. Yeah. And so like there's then pressure to do this thing. And
that is supposed to be enjoyable.
And it is. Oh,
and like,
it is.
I totally get what you're saying. The analogy that Alfie put when he was describing it, he's like, imagine like you throwing a baseball back and forth with your best friend.
Yeah.
And you love throwing a baseball back and forth with your best friend, and it's a fun thing to do. But then somebody says, okay, if you drop this baseball this time, you will not get $1 million. But if you do catch the baseball, then you'll get $1 million. So it's like all of a sudden this thing that you liked doing has just higher stakes associated with it.
So if I drop my baseball, there's a chance there will not be a child. Damn it!
So I think that's a good answer, because like there's never a point where we want to give up, but there are definitely months along the way these past 2 years that have been like, let's not take it so seriously, you know, like it, because it's tough mentally and also on each other and communication and all of that. I agree.
Not giving up, but like there are times where it was like, oh my gosh.
I totally hear you. And then we'll get to this question also later, but like where we're at as far as our journey goes, we're not super deep in as far as treatment goes, if that makes sense. Like we're deep in how long it's taken us to try to conceive naturally, but as far as treatment goes, it's not like we've been doing treatments in this type and this type and this type for so long. I'm sure that women that are super deep into just all of these different types of treatments and drugs and like all of this stuff want to give up like all the time. But obviously the end goal keeps pushing them forward, but we're not in that stage of everything. I'm not even gonna say yet, because like hopefully we just don't get so deep into it that we need to, but it's not due to that reason. It's just the pressure sometimes. This is a good question too. All of these are good questions. I'm just gonna keep saying that.
That one's not.
but this one's not, and this one's not. How much is the whole thing in general, or is it covered by your insurance?
Oh, that's a solid question.
That's a really good question.
So this is really important, and like this is why we love where we're going for this so much, is before you can even get in, they have to verify, or they need to verify insurance. Every insurance is different. And for ours especially, there were many phone calls. I know, it's okay. I won't go.
Everything's fine.
Speak for us, because again, insurances and everything's different. Every clinic is going to be different. There's going to be different prices.
Different prices per clinic, and also different amounts that your insurance will cover depending on your insurance.
Right. At the end of the insurance verification process, we are covered for specific services and specific numbers of services, and we are fortunate for that.
We are super fortunate for that.
Yeah.
But for our insurance, there's just kind of a separate process. Like we can't go ahead, for example, and start what they call a treatment cycle. So when the cycle starts, your treatment cycle starts. Like whatever you're doing, whether it's IUI or just Clomid or IVF, like when that starts, our clinic needs to be guaranteed that they're going to be paid. And so we need pre-approval from our insurance that says, yep, you are good to go, but that pre-approval can take like 15 days. So if you find out that last treatment cycle didn't work and you have a negative pregnancy test, and then your period starts like 3 days later, that 3 days is not enough time for your insurance to then approve for the next one. So if we don't want to pay out of pocket, we have to wait, but if we don't want to wait, we have to pay up front and then work to get reimbursed from our insurance. That's the insurance spiel. But with that said, we do know numbered costs for things so far that we've done. For us, an initial consultation where they read all of the labs so far that you've done and everything leading up to you going to the clinic, that initial consultation was $395, which did end up partially being covered by insurance, but not all of it was covered by insurance. And then subsequent office visits after that are $200, like specifically to talk to your doctor. But our doctor is really great in that he called the day of our follow-up consultation, the $200 one, and said, don't come in, like we can talk over the phone, which is amazing. He didn't want us to have to pay to just talk to him. He thought it was ridiculous, which we really appreciated. But in order to book a consultation with our doctor, you have to pay over the phone. So like we already had to pay $200, but anything that we have to pay up front gets post-process, so we pay $200, and then the clinic puts that through to the insurance, not our $200, but puts like the procedure or the meeting or whatever it was through the insurance, and gets paid back by the insurance. And then so we have credits with our fertility clinic for blood work or for anything else. Like they'll just take from what I call the clinic bank that we've already paid upfront for. So you're really not paying for that, if that makes sense. But so those are the costs for kind of office visits. And then at the start of an IUI cycle, which is the first kind of level of treatment and kind of cycle treatment that they recommend, it was between $200 and $300 up front for an IUI cycle, and that doesn't include blood work or anything like that. We've seen bills for like $40 here, $40 there for blood work, but the cycle itself, which includes the actual procedure, costs like between $200 and $300. And then Clomid, every time I pick up Clomid, which is a medication that kind of goes with that treatment.
40, 50, isn't it?
That was $50. Yeah, $50 after insurance. So I don't know what it would be before insurance. So you can see, depending on how many IUI cycles you do, that stuff can add up, especially if it's like $300 each round. I've heard it's up to $500 in some areas, so we're lucky that it was around there. And then on top of that, office visits and medications and follow-ups and things like that, it can definitely add up. And then I've heard that IVF, depending on your area, can cost anywhere from like $6 to $10K. And I think that also the variable there is office visits and consultations and specific medications and all of that stuff. Because we've had one fertility medication come to us, and we'll get to that in just a second, but it had to be ordered through a special fertility pharmacy of sorts. And that over the phone after insurance was $187, and it was one shot of something. One pre-filled syringe of drugs, like this much of it.
Wow. That
was $187. So I can see why the variable cost of IVF is like $6,000 to $10,000, because if like one shot is like $187, it just depends how many you need.
Yeah, on top of that, so like, I guess that's not like really a hidden cost, but like some things are just like unknown, so like...
They're not priced out on, on a website.
Like we opted for this thing, we didn't know it at the time, we didn't realize it. We opted for this one thing called genetic testing, and basically my super high level explanation, there are certain genetic mutations that they can test to see if both of us are carriers for.
And they tested for 511 of them.
And so like basically it's like if we're both carriers, then it's most likely our child will exhibit that mutation. We didn't know if like there's anything they could do, but it's like if there's anything that could be wrong with their child, it would be good to know.
Maybe we would like to know. It just sounded like it was an option like any other blood work. So it's like, while we're taking your blood work, do you want to opt for genetic testing?
Right, it truly is optional.
Yes.
And the reason I say that is because we got the bill and it was like $10,000. It was like...
I laughed because it was so shocking.
Yeah. Thankfully, insurance covered it and it cut the bill down significantly.
I was like, that's our fertility budget. Like, we're just right there.
It was mind-bending.
We learned the hard way through that there are just some hidden things that they just don't come out with the cost for. Not that I think they were trying to be shady. It's something that we need to advocate and encourage others to advocate for themselves.
Always ask, is it necessary?
What's the cost? Yeah. That type of thing. Can I put it through to the insurance first to see, like that type of thing. So that was a learning moment.
That was the most expensive thing so far.
That's a good point to make.
And that was literally just like sending our blood off to a lab.
So first of all, I love you and Jack. Thank you so much. They said, how do you cope with emotional up and downs of treatments?
Humor.
Seriously, and Dunkin' Donuts.
Procedure presents.
Procedure presents. Every time I go in, whether it's blood work or an ultrasound or procedure, Jack insists on going to get me like Dunkin' Donuts after, or if I want to like go pick myself something up at Ulta, like he's always pushing me to like treat myself after doing it.
That, my friends, is called retail therapy.
It truly works too, because literally every time I know I'm going in for blood work, I think about my Dunkin' Donuts after. Not that I can't get it anyway, associating it with after this, I get to go and do this. It definitely helps though. It does. It helps emotionally to like attach positive things to it, but also we cope with humor all the time.
Yeah, like
it's just what we do.
The TikTok you posted.
Oh my gosh, if you guys haven't seen this TikTok, we can't stop laughing at ourselves. We are such noobs.
In the description.
My TikTok's always linked down below in case you're on there and you want to follow, but it's dark humor, but it's just how we do it.
Outside, I mean, like just talking, obviously. Like we have our good nights and our bad nights. Like their nights, like we're just up talking.
All the time.
You know?
It's mostly daydreaming. Something that gets me through a lot is thinking, what if this month is it? You know? And some people may argue that that kind of sets you up for disappointment in the end, but would you rather be like skeptical and disappointed all throughout it and then super disappointed when you find out you're not pregnant, or hopeful and keeping your vibes high throughout the whole thing and just being like, this is what we're fighting for right now? Like, that's so cool. Daydreaming about like every time Jack goes to get donuts.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
He has this vision in his mind.
No, I've like flashed forward to like me with the little niños. You know, like wake up, like go for like an early morning jog or whatever, they're in the carriage, or you know, maybe they want to like use a little stubby old legs to run, you know, for a little bit or whatever. But then afterwards we come home and it's still early, so then we just go and we go get donuts, and that's our thing.
Things like that like you can see it just like lights up our mood, and it's really important for us to keep that in mind throughout this whole thing, that like that is what we're doing all of this for, and it's going to be so worth it. Okay, this question I wonder if I should put at the beginning of the video. It'll clear up a lot of questions you guys probably have after this video, so I'll keep it here. What are your next steps in this journey? So far, I have vlogs of all of the things basically that I'm going to slowly release over time, but spoiler alert, if you don't want to know about those yet, you can skip to the end of the video. But I think it's important to just kind of name the timeline so far so people kind of know where we're at as far as in our journey. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, this is gonna get a little medical, so if you're not into that sort of TMI, I totally get it, but this is just, at the end of the day, a lot of medical procedures around conception and babies. So if that makes you uncomfortable, I totally understand. But at this point, it's our second language. So our initial consultation was in October.
Yep.
And then during the initial consultation though, it was the second day of my cycle. So I had started my period like literally like the day right before. Turns out that they like to run their initial labs on cycle day 3. If you think of a cycle, it's days 1 to 28. Day 3, they usually run their like baseline labs, which was great. So literally, we felt like we were just waiting this whole time for this appointment, and then it just went, everything was so fast after that, which is incredible. Insurance was still like, with the waiting and the approval and stuff, we were still figuring that out along the way, but we just didn't want anything halting us from next steps. So we just did everything in our power to just keep it moving. We got my hormone levels and progesterone, just like all of this stuff that you test for. Just think of fertility and hormone levels and like all of that stuff, as well as my blood type, and that's when they did the genetic testing. And then Jack also got tested for his levels and numbers and everything like that as well.
I had to test my Navy.
The first time he was like, oh, we have to test the semen. That was
They're sailors.
Men is like the word, but he literally meant men at sea. He has to go test the men at sea.
For their voyage.
So funny, for their voyage. So we got all of those tests pretty quickly, and then we got those results within 2 weeks. I think the genetic testing is the only thing that took until 2 weeks. Then they prompted us to then schedule a follow-up with our doctor. So we did that. The follow-up wouldn't be until my next cycle started. And we also got told by our doctor that there's no reason we can't start our first treatment cycle before we see him. And depending on where everyone's levels are at and what their lab results say, like there's going to be a slew of combinations of different treatments, combinations of medicine, with procedures, with this, there's going to be so many. For example, I know a couple people who were prescribed just Clomid from their OB initially when they've been trying for a year without conception. Clomid works by making the body think that your estrogen levels are lower than they are, which causes the pituitary gland to increase secretion of follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, which I was borderline on. That's the level I was borderline on. And luteinizing hormone, or LH. Higher levels of FSH stimulate the ovary to produce an egg follicle or multiple follicles that will develop and be released during ovulation. So Clomid increases the chances of you producing mature eggs if you're not already doing that, or even multiple to be released during a cycle. So your chances of pregnancy go up by taking Clomid. The first step that some people take is just taking Clomid. For us, our first move was an IUI treatment cycle. and that was going to be coupled with Clomid. So what they wanted me to do in my particular case is to take Clomid, and then once I get the peak level or the darkest line on my ovulation at home strips, to call them and say, hey, looks like I'm peaking, which is what you call it, like I'm peaking, which means an egg is most likely going to be released, or multiple eggs are going to be released within the next 24 hours. And so they want to get you in for what they call an IUI procedure, interurinary insemination?
Uterine.
Uterine.
Intrauterine.
He knows more than I do.
I hope they don't put that stuff in your urinary tract.
You're right.
That's the whole beauty of the female anatomy. You guys have a totally separate tract.
Separate system.
The guy's like I-95, like, everyone go!
So basically this is a procedure and it's super quick. It's one of the less invasive procedures when you're comparing it to IVF, which is the kind of the last stop for a lot of people when they've tried multiple rounds of IUI treatments. But basically, just being blunt, what they do is they put the male sample exactly where it needs to be in the uterus. So normally through just natural trying to have a baby, it's not directly put there, obviously. That's not where it is, but they bypass any journey that his seamen have to go through to get to where they need to go. They just bypass that and put them exactly where they need to be.
It's a Trojan horse.
It really is. It's a Trojan horse.
Literally,
directly.
The Trojan horse is the syringe, and my sailors are all up there. They got them, all the best ones, by the way.
And then side note, what we had to look up about IUI is like they literally take his sample and they wash it so that it's only the good ones. It's so cool though. Like they literally like separate.
Picture of some lab tech with like big yellow rubber latex gloves, like
washing them. No. Basically they put it in like a centrifuge and it spins it really fast. And then by doing that, there's more dense ones and less dense ones, and it separates them, and one of them are more dead than the others basically. To get those ones out, so really the sample that they put in is like optimal. That was our first go, and that was all it was. It was Clomid, get the peak ovulation test at home for ourselves, and then schedule the IUI the very next day.
Yes.
2-week wait, test at the end. Spoiler alert, we're here, and it didn't work, but watch that video anyway when it goes up. So then that was in November. December we took a break because it was the holidays and we just really wanted to enjoy that, and we were kind of coming off of a low of just being like, wow, the first thing that we tried didn't work. It's like, yes, we've been trying for about 2 years naturally, but to like actually go in for a treatment cycle and for that not to work hit a little bit differently than just seeing a negative after naturally trying.
I think it was the two reasons that stuck out in my mind, if I recall. One, for that break, right? And we just wanted a break after the first one. And then the second reason was, first one fell within the holidays, and there was like a whole lot of stress with like scheduling and monitoring, and our local office was closed. Our local office is only 15 minutes away. Next office we have to drive to is
an hour and a half?
No, it's like 2. 2
hours away?
Yeah, it's a while. It's a ways away.
So during the holidays, one office is open for IUI procedures while the other one isn't.
Yep.
And like to schedule that around everything was just a lot of driving, a lot of time, a lot of scheduling.
Stressful. Yeah. So we're just like, for the Christmas holiday, because like there's more people, we're driving another hour and a half north, which would mean we'd have to drive like 3.5, 4 hours. It was like, let's just take a break and
it was really nice.
It was.
Yeah.
Which leads us to today.
So we knew that we would pick it back up in January, and it also gave my insurance time to pre-approve the January cycle. So we went into this cycle on day 1 not owing anything up front. They had already approved it. We were good to go. And this cycle specifically, I asked for follicle monitoring, which I only learned about because I watch videos like this on YouTube. So like why I want to be so open book about this. That's not something that my doctor had prescribed to me for my first IUI cycle, but basically follicle monitoring is, instead of kind of using your at-home ovulation kit strips to solely go off of to call and say, yes, I'm peaking, they literally have an ultrasound and they can see the follicles. So you go in around like the first day that you're set to ovulate for the week, and they get like a baseline of where your follicles are at, how they're measuring, and I knew from videos that we would be looking for the number 20. We wanted the follicle to be 20 inside. 20 millimeters, 20 whatever, I don't don't really know, as well as blood work and hormone levels. And if the hormone levels and the blood work were associated with a peak ovulation time, as well as my follicles being the size that they would like them to be, when they could physically see it, which is just so much more accurate than like having, like, is this a dark enough line for peak? I don't know. Like at home, they can physically see and you know for sure that you are peaking, which is great. And then they can trigger it with a shot of, we had a shot of Avidril, and that went into my stomach. And
you had a shot.
I did. It's a journey for, he did it for me. So I really appreciate that.
No, you did it. I just put the needle in.
I know, but still, it was very helpful.
My role is the same no matter what.
You just
put something inside of that.
But basically what that did was release the egg within the next 24 hours, and they scheduled IUI for the very next day, like after the trigger shot. So it all just lined up perfectly. So much more peace of mind came with that. So that's what we did this time. And right now we're in a waiting period, basically. We're just waiting. So that's where we're at now. And I think if this is unsuccessful, knocking on wood, just all the wood, I think we would do one.
You said all the wood.
I think we would do 1 to 2 more treatments of IUI. If we ever get to that, that's something that we will discuss. But I think going forward, those are similar treatments that are upcoming for us as well. In between then, it's getting hormone levels, seeing that everything's on track, monitoring follicles, Clomid, taking the drugs, all of that stuff. So if there are any questions that popped up while we were answering these questions, let us know if you want to do a second Q&A down the line in the comments below. I'm sure as we answered stuff, more questions were coming about. But otherwise, my friends, if you made it all the way to the end of the video and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, make sure to do so down below, because we are uploading videos about lifestyle, fertility, our journey, all of that stuff, Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday. Everyone, do not forget to give this video a big old thumbs up, and we'll catch you in the next one, my friends. We'll see you later. Bye!
Bye!